This video is going to explain how to reorder what part gets cut first and where the machine is going to make its initial plunge into the material. So there's many times when you are cutting, it is important to pay attention to where that plunge point is and what parts get cut first due to part hold down or vacuum or the type of vacuum that you have. So it is always best to start with the smallest parts and cut the smallest parts first, then move on to the larger parts. So by default, each part is going to be cut starting with from the lower left corner of each part. The cut order can be seen in a couple ways by selecting the part in the Info tab. There is a cut order number and a plunge point. So as we select around, we can see the cut order is updating and changing. That is the order in which it's going to get cut. The plunge point is the plunge corner. So as it was with move, copy, and paste, think about dividing up any one part into 4 sections: lower left, lower right, upper left. Lower left plunge point is 0, then moving in a counterclockwise direction: 0, 1, 2, and 3. So as we see, all of the plunge point positions are set to 0. The other way to see this and more visually see where it's going to be cut is select and check the cut order box. This will display a red circle with a number inside of that circle. So the circle and the location of that circle is indicating the start point or the plunge point in this case, and the number is indicating the order in which they're going to get cut. So you can see it is going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then 8. So even though it is kind of moving in kind of a general path down to the lower left, if our vacuum hold down is not just right, this may not necessarily be how we would want to have them cut. We also move to another sheet and see more clearly on what needs to happen. So the first sheet, there's probably not a whole lot that I would do for cutting here. It seems like everything would be held in place. It's going to cut just fine. Now moving to the second sheet, there is the case here where we have a couple smaller parts up here, and those parts I will want to cut first. I also want to pay attention to where it is making its initial plunge and the direction of cut. So cutting cabinet components, plywood, melamine, you would typically want to cut that in a conventional direction. Conventional is a left to right around the outside of the part. So if this part was to start at this location, it is going to start here, move to the right, up, then over and over to the edge of the sheet. And at this point, when it makes this last final cut, the only surface area that is holding this part in place is the vacuum that is underneath of that part alone. So in this case, it might be best to have the plunge point in the lower right corner to where it is going to start in the lower right, move up, over, and down. And even though it is coming to make its final cut, it is not being removed from the rest of the sheet until it makes its final connecting point at this location right here. And most of the time, that is enough to hold that part in place and still move on. In some cases, it is possible that the part gets kicked off a little bit, but even at that, it's just going to give a little bit of a radius, kind of a nip at the end of the cut there that could be, sanded off, and in some cases, it may not be any worries at all. So we're going to look at the best way to reorder all of these parts. And the way I'm going to do it is select the parts in the order that I want them cut, along with selecting in the quadrant of the part that I would like to reorder. So for example, I want to cut this part first. I'm going to click in the lower right section. Notice that the part number has updated to the last count on the sheet. And as I move through and click on each one, again, thinking about the direction of cut and coming back, this part I'm going to have right here as it comes around. And again, this part I'm going to make in the upper right. So as it cuts to the left, down and over, it is not getting completely removed from the main sheet until the final cut through. So selecting this upper left. And as you get used to understanding what's going on here, you get fairly quick with this. And there, these two parts are right close together. That's great. So we'll move to the left, down, over, and up. It's still connected to the sheet over here. With this part starting in the upper left, it's moving down, over, up, and then it is not being released from the part until it makes its final cut through. The last two parts are quite large, so it really doesn't matter where those punch points are. Most likely your vacuum is going to hold that down. But again, if you are concerned about it, you may want to think about how this is going to be released as well. But in this case, I'm going to select them all right there. It is a little less travel since I'm not worried too much about these two larger parts moved. It makes it a little less rapid motion or wasted moves while it is cutting, so we don't have to move from this corner up to this corner. All of the start plunge points are happening right there at the same location. So once that is done, you just uncheck the cut order, and they remain there. You could select cut order once more, and you could see that they are still in the same order that we had originally selected them. And again, I'll quickly run through this part or this sheet in the way that I would maybe think about cutting them. So you would kind of scroll through each sheet, seeing if there's anything that you need to have updated or changed. If that sheet looks good or has larger pieces on it, as this sheet did, you don't have to change the selection order or the cut order, only if you want to reorder the parts. So once you have made those changes, again, uncheck the cut order, and you are all set to save the toolpaths. The other selection order that we want to look at is what feature is getting cut first. We see in this list that each object or each feature is starting with a number. Not all features will be that way. Coming from Cabinet Parts Pro, they will all have a number this way, but if you're bringing in just random DXF drawings or bringing them in from another CAD program, they may not be ordered in the logical order for cutting. So in this case, the final perimeter cut is the last one to cut. All of the other operations, we have the hole drilling, all kind of grouped in order to one another, and then the dados in order with one another. But if we want to change the selection order or the cut order of any one operation, if you hold the shift key down while you drag an item in the list, it is going to reorder. So if you see, again, holding the shift key down, moving up, we now have the dados being cut first, then it will move on to the drilling functions, then finally the cut. So just to quickly finish up and show what we have, we went through and looked at the cut order found on the Info tab to see the circle, which is the plunge point. The number inside of that circle is what part or the order that those parts are going to get cut. Then we have the features to machine, the list of DXF layers. This is the order in which those features are going to be cut.